Welcome to the Show Me the Way podcast. I am your host, Andrea Miller, and I'm so excited to bring this show to you. Show Me the Way is a podcast dedicated to exploring the journeys of those who have faced adversity and found themselves on unexpected paths. We will have meaningful, thoughtful conversations about challenges we have faced and how we discovered and forged new direction. Prepare to be inspired and to uncover your own strength as you listen to relatable and motivating stories. Life has a way of twisting and turning, and we often need a fresh perspective to understand how to navigate. Let's show each other the way. This week on Show Me the Way, I had the absolute joy of interviewing DiAnne Karas, a connection through my sister and previous guest, Toni. What a beautiful and inspiring conversation. DiAnne has experienced more pivots than most, beginning early in life with foster care and adoption, navigating complex relationships with her biological parents, marriages and divorces, young single motherhood, multiple degrees, and a wide range of careers and vocations. She's lived all over the country and truly lived through each chapter. What stood out most to me is how DiAnne has consistently found blessings and gained perspective from every road she's traveled. Through it all, she followed her heart, leaned into her faith, and never lost her deep love for serving others. She understands the power of community, refuses to let fear hold her back, and has always gone after what she believed was best for herself and her children. Today, DiAnne is a joyful, spirited, and faith-filled woman with an infectious love for life and a passion for helping others. She shares powerful wisdom and gratitude, the importance of documenting your blessings, and how tragedy can ultimately turn into triumph. Listen in and learn alongside me. You're going to love DiAnne's energy. Welcome back to the Show Me the Way podcast. I've been looking forward to this interview since hosting my sister Toni a couple months ago. Listeners, please join me in welcoming DiAnne Karas to the show. Toni has known DiAnne for many years, and she has made a huge impact on Toni's life. She even officiated Toni's wedding. After we spoke, Toni suggested I have her on the podcast, and I know we will all learn so much from her. DiAnne also lives in Sydney, Ohio, like Toni, and she has quite a resume, having many roles, holding many jobs, degrees. She's authored books. She just seems to serve others all of the time. It just seems like that is a natural part of her heart and her life. Toni always has such amazing things to say about DiAnne. She said I would just love her, and I am grateful that she agreed to be a guest. Actually, we've just been chatting for the last 20 minutes, and I should have clicked record then because everything that comes out of this woman's mouth is just beautiful. I'm so glad she's here. Welcome to the show, DiAnne. Thank you so much.
Andrea, you just fill my heart with joy. There's
That's
so
my
much
word.
history between us already. I love it.
I know. And we just talked about how God places people in our lives, and he's doing it right now. You can see it. This is another God wink example, an example of God just showing up in my life, in all of our lives every single day. So thank you for being here. With that, obviously, you have a lot more to share about your life, but tell us a little bit more about you from your words.
Well, I'm going to derail you just for a second.
Please do.
When we were talking earlier and I asked you, how did you get here? And you shared with me some of the tragedies that you've experienced and the journey that it took you to triumph. I just want you to know how proud I am of you, of recognizing that there's always more to the story than the tragedy. And that when we develop coping mechanisms for dealing with tragedy, we begin to see that triumph is soon to follow tragedy. So we can have some anticipation and expectation that, oh, this is going to be interesting to see how this turns out.
For sure. Thank you so much. That means so much. I'm already writing notes here. Okay. Well, yeah. Okay. So thank you. I really appreciate you saying that. That means a lot. But yeah, let's hear more about you.
So I am 77 years old. I
Don't
am.
believe it.
I know it's just crazy, right? And I'm like a 5-year-old when it comes to birthdays. I mean, I'll like say, well, I could be almost like 77 and a half pretty soon.
I'm the same. And my family makes fun of me. You'll have to ask my sister about that. I love birthdays. They're my favorite time.
But what I've realized is that birthdays, I posted on Facebook recently, please, family, friends, I'm begging you, do not buy me anything ever again. I don't want any more stuff. I don't need any more stuff. The greatest present is your presence. I want to be with you. That's what I want. And when we're together, I want to make memories. And you just never know what kind of memories are going to show up. So birthdays are fun. The holidays are fun. I love decorating. I grew up in a foster home in New York City, and it wasn't safe. I my biological mother shared with me. I didn't meet my biological parents until I was in my 20s and 30s, but no, I guess, yeah, 20s, yeah, somewhere around there. But my biological mother said she came to see me in the foster home one time, and every inch of my body was covered with bruises. Thankfully, I do not remember that. But what I do know is that many people have either a fight or flight response to situations. I typically do not have a fight response. I have a freeze and flight response. So when I was 7, I was adopted by my great aunt and uncle. The first 3 years were, I think, pretty normal, but by the time I was 10, it was totally not good, not healthy. It was dark. There were a lot of issues. My adoptive mother, who was my great aunt, became a full blown alcoholic. And it was very abusive. There were a lot of things that I won't talk about, but it was basically, I was held captive in a castle. Literally, it's a historical mansion, but it has all the features of a castle. It was our dining room table sat 24 people. That was just the dining room. The tea room sat 14 people. There were 3 living rooms. There were those majestically high ceilings with recessed lighting. There was a formal ballroom on the 4th floor. There was a bomb shelter. There was an 8-car garage. There was an Olympic-sized swimming pool. There were formal gardens. And I did not perceive that our house was different than the bungalow down the street. What I did perceive was, are you kind and are you safe? So when it came time to go to college, I wasn't allowed to use the phone, have friends, go to friends. I was allowed to go to private school, and I was allowed to work in my family's businesses. I went to business college when I was 10 years old, the youngest student the business college ever had. And the dean of the college said, we've never had a student this young. Will she behave? And my family said, she'll behave. Behavior was never an issue for me. I was very compliant. What I realized is that being held captive in a castle, no matter how wealthy you are, freedom trumps money any day of the week. So when it came time to go to college, my family said, well, you can have 2 choices. You can stay home and do dishes, or you can become a nurse. And I said, okay, I'll stay home and do dishes. No, I said, I'll be a nurse. I want to be a nurse. Actually, I wanted to be a doctor. I'm thankful that my family, whether they perceived it or not, I would not have had the emotional stamina, I don't think, to make it through medical school at that season of my life. But I discovered after my first year in college that I could work weekends as a nurse tech and I could support myself. So at 18, I emancipated myself. And at 19, I was working full time, going to school full time, and doing a USO production of Bye Bye Birdie. And I met an airman who'd just come back from Vietnam. And he said, girl, you can dance like crazy, but you don't know how to project. I could help you with that. And he was a musician. I said, okay. So one thing led to another. We fell in love. We got married. We got pregnant in that order. Because when I was growing up, nice Catholic girls did not have sex before marriage. You'd make out like crazy, but you did not have sex before marriage. And I was a nice Catholic girl. So, of course, and then I go to do my premarital, and my family doctor says, what are we doing for birth control? And I said, Catholics don't practice birth control. He says, okay, I'll see you soon. I said, what do you mean? I'm still
You'll
in
be
college.
pregnant.
I'm not having any babies now. He says, well, you will. And of course, I did. So my entire senior year, I am pregnant with my son, who's now 56 and a half years old. That was an amazing experience. I mean, I never dreamed about getting married. I never dreamed about a wedding. I never dreamed about I just was living day to day. And when our son was 6 months old, so then I graduated 2 weeks before. Our son was born 2 weeks before I graduated. I took the board exams. We moved to New England, where his family was from. And by the way, I got the highest board exams of anybody in my school ever.
Wow.
Maybe I could have made it through medical school, but
Probably.
but at any rate, we moved to New England, where his family was from, and every day he'd leave the house and say, "Okay, honey, I'll see you later." And when our son was 6 months old, he left the house. He said, I'll see you later. And that was 56 years ago. And I've never seen him since. And
Wow.
there I am, barely 21 years old. Early childhood abandonment and trauma was a trigger for me. And I was working two jobs. I was an intensive care, coronary care nurse, and I was a school nurse. And I quit both jobs and went to bed and cried for 3 months. What was I thinking? And then I realized if I don't get out of bed, my son may end up where I was, and that's not going to happen. So I got up, I went back to work, I went back to school, I got 2 more degrees and worked full time. And I realized I'm a hot mess. I need therapy. So I found Ruth Martin in Keene, New Hampshire, and she saw me 3 times a week. And she said to me, "Girl, you have the emotional development of an infant. The good news is I can help you." And she did. And she asked me a question one day that was so profound. She said, "Tell me about your family." So I told her about my adoptive family. She said, "Tell me about your biological family." I told her what I knew about my mother. But when she asked me about my father, I didn't know anything. And she said, "Well, what did you think about your father?" I said, "I didn't think anything about my father. Why should I?" She said, "Yes." I said, "Okay, I'll go home and think about my father." Well, because I was adopted by family, I was able to get my father's phone number. And in 5 minutes, I'm on the phone talking to my biological father, and I'm 22 years old. And when he answered the phone, he said, "I have been waiting for this call for 20 years. By the time I found you, you were already adopted, and I didn't feel like I had the right to intrude upon your life. So I've been waiting for you." He said, "May I come and see you?" I said, "Sure." So he flies from Colorado, Denver, Colorado, to Keene, New Hampshire, about a week later. And we're talking, and I asked him, "So what's your story?" He said, "Everything bad that has happened to you is my fault. And I will be privileged to spend the rest of my life endeavoring to make it up to you." And then he went on to say, "I want you to know I'm really impressed with you. You know, you're single, you're raising a boy by yourself, you work full time, you go to school full time, uh, you're getting 2 more degrees. But I also need you to know that's not why I love you." "Okay, why do you love me?" "Because you're mine." And no one had ever loved me without condition. Everything was always conditional, and I never met the conditions. I can remember my biological mother saying, or my adoptive mother saying to me one day, "We got you out of the gutter. Frankly, that's where you belonged." And I would say to myself, and it was always like I had these two voices. There was me, the little girl, and there was me, the adult. And I would say to myself, that's a horrible thing to say to a little adopted girl. That's horrible. I would judge what people would say, and I would categorize them, right or wrong, good or bad. And I mothered myself. I don't think I was ever a child. I think I was just a grown ass woman right out of the chute. When I was in the foster home, my first deliverance came when another little girl came, and I knew that my job was to keep her safe. And that turned out to be one of the keys to how do we turn tragedy to triumph when we recognize life, it's not about us. It's about the people we have the privilege to sit alongside of. And when we can get our mind off of ourself and focus on how can I help you? What can I do for you? Life becomes so much easier because you can't fail when you're trying to help somebody else because it's not about you. When I had many successful careers. And when I was 59 years old, I was a Christian minister, non denominational. And I had remarried several times, in fact, 4 times, married and divorced 4 times. I'm not real proud of that, but that's part of my story. And it is what it is. And so I'm on my fourth marriage, and it's not working. And my husband was a good man. He just lost his way. And my daughter, things were getting pretty serious. And I said, "You need to go somewhere else and get your shit together. This is not working. This is too much stress in our household." And he said, "I get it." So he did. And I went to the church leadership and I said, "You need to know that we're separating." And they said, you need to know that if you do that, you both will be fired from your very high profile jobs. After 25 years in the nonprofit, having left an inordinately lucrative career on Wall Street to go into the seminary and become a minister, my church fired me. And I thought, how interesting. Well, God called me, you didn't. So we're going to see, this is God's problem. We're going to see what he's going to do. So when I started all over again at 59 and a half years old, God opened doors. And I look back and I am so thankful for the doors that God saw what was happening. But earlier in my life, I was probably 23, maybe 24. I had a personal relationship that also evolved into a business relationship. And together we owned an executive search firm. And my partner was also a Vietnam vet. And little did I realize also had PTSD. And one day we were sitting at the dining room table. We were living in Sarasota, Florida, and something went off in his head. And he took the handset of an old fashioned telephone and he beat me in the face with it. But when I was 10 years old, I read my mother's ladies' home journal that had articles on, can this marriage be saved? And it talked about men who beat women. And it said they kill them. They either kill their spirit or they kill their lives. And what you do if a man ever lays his hands on you, not in love, is that relationship is over. There's no talking, there's no, I'm sorry, I don't know what, it's over. I knew exactly what to do. And the next morning, I got my kid, the cat, and the bird, put them in my car. And as I'm pulling out, my business partner boyfriend says, oh, by the way, you might want to know that all the assets are in my name and all the liabilities are in yours. Are you sure you want to leave? And I said, yeah, I have everything I need. I have my life. I have my kid. And I have the cat and the bird. The next day, actually that day, I called some friends. I said, I'm in a little bit of trouble. Could John and I stay with you? Sure. I called another executive search firm and I said, here's my background. Here's what I'm looking for. So at that point, I had a degree in nursing, psychology, performing arts, 3 degrees at that point. And they said, yes, we have a wonderful opportunity for you. And although he wasn't world famous at the time, Dr. Dennis Waitley, who wrote The Psychology of Winning, who taught the law of attraction, who taught how to visualize, who went on to publish a bazillion books and became world famous, the most highly published high performance motivational psychologist. I became the vice president of his organization called the International Society for Advanced Education. And I helped him put on continuing education seminars for physicians worldwide. God knew I had to be in Florida to meet Dennis Waitley. I then moved from Sarasota to Siesta Key, where there were only 3 condos on the whole beach. Not anymore today. And not at condos, hotels, 3 hotels on the beach. And I got to work with someone who changed my life, who taught me how to visualize, how to speak into being what I wanted to happen. How don't talk about, oh, my arthritis. No, it's not you. You don't own it. You say, oh, you speak your health into being. You don't speak negatives. You speak your health into being. You speak and you visualize. So I remember one time when I was working as a minister, my husband and I've moved 65 times. I've lived all over the world. I know how to move. I'm good at it. I have a PhD in moving. I realized after all these moves, one day I realized I don't have a desk. And I thought, how did that happen? How do I not have a desk? So I thought, all right, well, let's see. I need to figure out. So I'm looking through my house. If I had a desk, where would it live? And after I look all through the 3-story townhouse, I realized there was a space at the top of the stairs for a Queen Anne secretary. I go to J.C. Penney's and I see the perfect Queen Anne secretary is $600. I don't have $600. Money is never the problem. I said, okay, I know what I need and I know where it is. I go out to my car and there's a note on my car. Somebody had dinged my car and left me a note with their insurance information. And it was a minor ding, but guess how much the compensation was on that insurance claim? $600. It's never about money, it's about the vision. But Dennis Waitley taught me these things, how to visualize. Money is never the problem. The problem is our vision. Can you picture it? And the more detail you can put into the picture of it, and don't stress about it, don't angst over it, just what is it that you want? And let it come to pass. So I look at that magazine article I read when I was 10, served me 12 years later. When I'm with my boyfriend in New England, and we decide we're going to move to Florida to do this career weekends gig. And I'm learning how to run a business, and I'm learning how to see things, and I'm learning how to bring things to my life that I need and I want. So tragedy is a precursor to triumph. That doesn't mean you have to have a tragedy to get a triumph, but I will tell you that when tragedy comes your way, be looking for the deliverance, because God knows what's coming and he might just be setting you up for what you need. Does that make sense?
It does, and I could listen to you talk all day. Wow, yes. Before we hopped on, DiAnne, you asked why I started this podcast, and you keep saying tragedy, and I have a hard time thinking of it like that anymore, and maybe it's because I've seen triumph. I've seen what my son does for everybody that he interacts with. So you're just warming my heart. You're just filling my heart this morning with the words that you're saying, because it's been 11 years since we had the unspeakable, the unimaginable happen to us. But looking back, it's like, it doesn't even seem like a tragedy anymore. Now, do I wish he could walk? Do I wish he could play sports? Yes. But the perspective that he has taught me, that God wanted me to learn, and wanted my husband to learn, and everybody that's interacted with him to learn, it's it's miraculous. It's amazing what my son has shown us, and what my older son has shown us as well, by being a sibling to a brother that is in a wheelchair. So, like my listeners and I started the podcast because 11 years ago, my son was diagnosed with Duchenne muscular dystrophy. I'd never heard of it. I didn't know where it came from. I found out I was a carrier. It was genetic, and I had passed it along to him. It was a very difficult time, but so much triumph has come from that time. My husband and I, we've been married 24 years. We are stronger than I think we've ever been. We're partners. We're not perfect, but we work on things together. We work on our marriage. We work together to create the best life we can for our kids. And we're not giving up on one another. And I'm so grateful for that. And like I said, my older son, he's 19. He has the patience, the love. He wants to serve and help others, and all of that comes from the relationship he has with his brother. And his brother just thinks he is the greatest person in the world. So I love their relationship. And then, yeah, my younger son, again, it's got to be frustrating. It's got to be difficult to not be able to do what a lot of other kids his age can do. But I wouldn't change him. I wouldn't change anything about his attitude. He's strong-willed. He's smart, tries everything, isn't afraid, and he just shows us that tomorrow's not promised, so take advantage of today.
Let me ask you a
So,
question. A lot of people
yes.
who have these unique challenges don't make it. Their marriages fail. I was speaking to a group of high school students recently, and I always ask them to if they're willing to share any tragedies that they've gone through personally. And this one girl shared that her parents lost a child to sudden infant death syndrome, and it caused their family to divorce. When she told me that, a light bulb went off, because the reason that I was adopted was because my great aunt and uncle had lost a child to SIDS. And I suspect that the reason that my adoptive mother became an alcoholic was that she was suffering through her loss. My question to you is, what is your secret? What do you think you and your husband and your family do and have done to keep these challenges from devouring you?
That is a great question, and I don't think it's a secret. I don't think it's one thing for sure. I think something I joke about often is that my husband's an only child and I'm a middle child, so, like, that's the perfect combo because when you're an only child, you're used to the world revolving around you, and when you're a middle child, a lot of times you want to help the world revolve around those around you. You wanna help, you wanna serve, you wanna be the peacemaker, and so I think it's a really good match in terms of, sure, I wanna do what I can for you, and it's a good match. Um, but I just think it's a lot of work, and I think you have to not be afraid of it, and you really have to understand that you're partners, and I'm very fortunate because my husband he is a hardworking guy, he wants to support his family. He lives for that. He creates safety for us, and that's what he wants to do all of the time. And he's also because he's created the safe space, he's allowed me to make the decisions I've needed to make. So he's borne a lot on his shoulders in terms of maintaining a stable job and bringing in the biggest part of our income, but he's allowed me to do what I need to do to care for my son. So we're
I would love to
partners.
see your husband be on a podcast and talk about how how to create a safe space, what works, what doesn't work. So that's my ask is have your
He
husband on the podcast
he
because I
was
think
on it, he did share his perspective. So, early on in the 1st season, I'll have to send you the link, he was
thank
on,
you.
and it was great to hear the story from his perspective, and I acted as a third-party interviewer instead of his wife, and I feel like that was really interesting, but yeah, I like what you said because I would like his take on how he creates a safe environment. I feel safe knowing he's here. And I don't think everybody can say that. So that I give a lot of credit to him on, but I just think that marriage is hard work and it doesn't always work out. Sometimes people don't grow together and I understand that. And I also understand why people have to get divorced. It's not working. And like I just said, life is short. You need to go after your joy and if your situation's not joyful anymore or like you said, you are losing yourself, you got to do something about that.
Right.
So I'm just very fortunate that we decided to grow together. We know a lot of people in the Duchenne community that they're single parents. It just didn't work out because it's very complicated to have a medically complex child and to have to deal with that. So I'm very fortunate that we decided we're going to do this together because I can't imagine doing it without
Atta girl.
him. So thank you for that question. But yeah, that is one of the main reasons. You can tell both you and I, we have stories to share. We like to talk. I love to talk. So I was like, I'm going to do a podcast. And, I have a lot to learn and we're growing and I hope to keep going with it. And I want it to become something more than it is today. But I just wanted to create a platform where I could share that story and then I could hear from beautiful people like DiAnne to share their stories too, because geez, we could have went down several paths already based on everything you've already shared. So the fact that you have turned so much of your tragedy into triumph and just looking at you today, first of all, if you guys could see Diane, she does not look like she's 77. I mean, not at all. Like there's so much light and so much joy and it just exudes from you.
I want to share with you. People ask me often, "How do you look so young?" And a couple of things that really hit me because when we think about sometimes tragedies can just devour somebody and they age way before their times. I read recently that when women have children older in life, the probability of them living longer, like if you have children in your I had my daughters when I was 41 and 43. I had my son when I was 20. So I have a 20-year gap between 1 and 2. But um, it's mindset, it's really attitude, it's joy. So a big tip, and I get random calls from friends who say, "Hey, there's this young girl I know that I really think you could help." Okay, give her my number. And then I tell, look, I am a board certified psychiatric nurse. That is not the same as a therapist. I'm going to teach you how to find a therapist. And for those of you that don't know, you go on a website called Psychology Today. You click on find a therapist, and then you look for the different issues, and you look for insurance, and then you get like a little 5-minute maybe meet and greet, and you test each other out. It's really simple to find a therapist. But finding a therapist that resonates with you. I'm a faith-based woman, so it's important for me to connect with someone who is also faith-based. Having a therapist, I don't know how people get through life because there's just so many things that we don't always understand. But relationship with God is so paramount. Learning how to, and I'm not talking about religion. I don't care if people are traditionally faith-based. I don't care. Just be kind and just be safe. But if you are faith-based, and I just think that God is so much bigger than any label we can put on him, whether it's nature or art or music or the sun, the moon, the stars. I don't care. I happen to love the scriptures. I'm a biblical research specialist. I've studied Greek, Hebrew, and Aramaic. I love the scriptures. They took me from where I started, just a great respect for God. The Catholic Church was safe for me. Nobody beat me, nobody yelled at me. The music was pretty, the stained glass was pretty, and I liked the incense. So it was quiet and it was safe. But when I got to a season of my life where I needed more, I needed something more, what I realized was I needed the scriptures. But I spent 5 years in New York studying with a rabbi. I might have taught him more than he taught me, but it was a good 5 years. And then I met this woman whose family was Palestinian, who was an equity actress on Broadway. And she answered an ad I had for a housekeeper. And I said, "Who are you really? You're not the housekeeper. Who are you really?" And she said, "Well, I teach biblical research." And I said, "I don't know how those words fit together. I know Bible and research." And she said, "Well, if you think the Bible is useful for your life, then it's really imperative that you understand what the words meant in their original languages." She said, "For example, we're taught fear God. Fear means to be afraid in my head, but in the original, it means respect God." I'm like, "Well, that's really cool." And every question I asked her, she'd open the Bible and she'd read it to me, and in a way that I understood it. And I was like, "Dang, how do you do that?" She said, "Well, I've been studying for quite a while." And I said, "I want to do that." And the next thing I knew, I was in the seminary studying to become a minister, studying Greek, Hebrew, and Aramaic. And I met my husband there, and we got married, and we had two amazing children together. And God led me to what I needed. He took me in New York City by way of an ad in the New York Times for a housekeeper. Only God can do this stuff. So I'm in a season of life where I don't really like church, but I love God and I like people and I love God's words. And I feel kind of betrayed by my church. Not kind of, was betrayed by my church. And so I'm very mindful of the politics that can be very much a part of religion. But God is pure and God is just and God is wonderful and he is not limited to anything. God is God. He is so big. So I am so thankful for the journey. I didn't want to stay where I was, but it led me to where I am today. And then 2 years ago, God told me, "I want you to get all 5 of your books published. I want you to do 10 TED Talks, and I want you to do one international speaking tour." And I said, "I love that." But I was a holistic financial advisor and I had a practice, and my clients were family to me. I loved it. I didn't know how to do it.
Life has a funny way of reminding us that we can't plan for everything, but we can prepare for what matters most. That's why I'm so thankful for today's sponsor, Tammy Brown Insurance Agency. Tammy and her team don't just sell policies, they build relationships. Whether you're protecting your home, your car, or your family's future, Tammy takes the time to really listen and find coverage that fits your life. As a mom, a homeowner, and a Michigander, I love knowing that I've got someone local in my corner who actually cares, not just about my insurance, but about my peace of mind. So if you've been putting off checking your coverage, take this as your sign. Call Tammy Brown Insurance Agency or visit the Tammy Brown Agency Facebook page and tell them the Show Me the Way podcast sent you. Because when life takes a turn, it helps to have someone who can show you the way back to security. When we talked before and I said, you can share what's on your heart, do you feel like this was the direction you were going to go and kind of share all of these things, or was there something specific that we have
I've
not?
never, I've done keynote speeches all
Mhm.
over the country for decades, and I never know what I'm going to share. I just let God lead me. And I have a million stories to tell on a million different subjects, and I'm always curious to see where God directs my steps. But it's like I brought a copy of my book out with me so that if I got stuck and all of a sudden my brain froze, I could look up something, but I haven't need to look at
Was
it.
that was that the first book that you published?
Yes.
Okay.
I last April I published that one, and then um I did an audiobook of this. I did an audio version of it, which was great fun. And now I've got four others that I'm working on. And I was talking to my therapist the other day. She said, "I think God has something even bigger in store for you." I thought, "Oh, that'll be fun." But at any rate, God had said, "I want you to do this," and I couldn't figure out how. And so something unexpected and shocking happened, and I got fired from my job as a holistic financial advisor. And I have told people I'm either delusional or it was divine intervention, but I choose to believe
I'm gonna
God
go.
said, "Look, girl,
Yep.
I've been telling you for 2 years, I want
Yep.
you to do this. And if you can't do it, I'm going to shut the door so hard, you have to do it. Okay." I said, "All right, you're the boss."
I believe that wholeheartedly, yes. And there's always this path that God has created for us, and we're supposed to be on it. And I loved what you said about, just trying things and following the direction. It's like with this podcast, I say it all the time. I do it messy. One of my friends one of my friends said, "Well, what questions do you ask? Like, do you prepare? Do you write questions?" And I said, "Oh no. I do the same thing where God leads me, where the guest leads me, and I try to ask questions organically. Sometimes I wish I was a little more organized with it, but it seems to be working so far."
God will never lead you astray.
Yes, I believe that. So we talked a little bit at the beginning too about the importance of your village and your community and those around you. And you've mentioned all of these different people, the people that you worked with, the experiences that you had with various people, the random ad that you that you followed through with. So tell us more about that, the community and people coming into your life for reasons.
Well, let me first of all debunk the 5 year and the 10-year
Oh
plan
my gosh, please
concept.
do. Please do.
Let me debunk that. There is no such thing. You can have
No.
all the plans you want, but God directs your steps. So don't waste your time. When I think of the ways that God led me to phenomenal, I mean, world class opportunities. I mean, I got to dance with a ballet company in Covent Garden. I got to study at the Royal Academy of Dramatic Arts. When I got to do a season living in London, and my son went to the same prep school that Prince Charles went to. And Prince Charles could have married me. I was there then, but I'm glad he didn't.
Me too.
And I always say to people, I tell them, Diana was the princess. I'm the queen mother.
I love it.
So forget about your 5 year and 10-year plan. Pay attention to what is important today. I can remember when I got fired from my ministerial job, and my son happened to be living in Ohio at the time. And he would say, "Mom, do you have enough for today?" And it was terrifying because I had two teenage daughters getting ready to go to college, and all of the money that I had made working on Wall Street in New York City and working for American broadcast companies, that money was long gone after 25 years in the non-profit. But I did have enough for each day. And as he asked me that very consistently, I learned to relax. And I was like, you know what? I do have enough for today. And if such and such works out, great. If it doesn't, something else will. And then when I got hired to be a financial advisor, the first couple of years were terrifying. And I was crying every day because I was afraid I wasn't going to make it. And all of a sudden it hit me. You say you trust God, you say you believe in God, but you don't act like it. You're crying, you're terrified, you're afraid. You're letting your past of being abandoned as a child affect your fear of the future for your children. Stop it. And that's when I realized life is not about me. It's about the people that I have the privilege to sit alongside of. And then it was like, I relaxed and life changed. That's when it got easier. I would teach classes all over the country for my firm. And And new financial advisors would ask me at every class, so when does it get easier? And I say, oh, I can tell you the moment it gets easier. Wait, you can tell each one of us the moment it's going to get easier? I said, yeah. They said, well, will you tell us? Well, sure, I will. It gets easier the moment you embrace the truth that life is not about you. It's about the people that you have the privilege to sit alongside of. When you get your eyes off of yourself, the 1 degree paradigm shift, just shift your focus from you to them. You don't even have to turn your head all the way around. It's not even a 180. It's just a shift your focus from you to them. There's no failing. God will provide. God's job is to take care of you. Your job is to take care of them. It's easy. Voila. Shift your focus. So when I was able to do that and let go of the fear, that perpetual grip, that anxiety, that worry, that terror, let go of it and really trust God, life was so much easier. And then one thing led to another. When we focus on our listening, our peace, staying peaceful, not letting all the noise that the dark side wants to bombard us with and terrorize us with, and just focus on my one job is to be peaceful enough to hear God's still small voice. He will direct my steps and he doesn't fail. He's good at it. And I tell myself every day when my children are going through challenges and I'm trying to figure out how to help them, stop. You're not God. Stop it. Stop it. You're not God. God is God. Your job is to stay peaceful so you can hear him tell you what he wants you to do. You're not God. I tell myself that every day. And it's true. It is never any less true. God will provide the people, the circumstances, the situation, and I have to refuse to be afraid. God says, fear not, fear not, fear not. And he says, and forget about revenge. Vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. I will repay better than you could any day. It's my editorial comments.
It's so true, and you're right. When we have so many worries and so much fear, that's when you don't know what's gonna happen next, and you just live that way, and you're scared, and you're unsure, and things just don't feel like they're coming together. But when you
Right.
put all your own worries aside, and you just take a second and you pray, or you try to listen. I love how you keep saying, let that peacefulness take over so that you can really listen. And when you do that, it changes everything. It really changes everything. When I turn over to God, I don't have control, but I feel safe and I feel secure and I feel like it's okay. I've quit jobs. I've left corporate pay because I wanted to do something different. I wanted to be there for my son. He provides. My husband and I figured it out. And we're going to keep doing that. And actually, he's having some struggles with his job right now. And I just keep thinking it's going to be okay. We're going to survive no matter what we need to do. God will provide for us.
You don't have to know what the future is. God knows the future.
Yeah, we do not
So
know at all.
all we have to do is today.
Mhm.
Oh, and the other, I've got to tell you this. This is so important. So, a absolutely irreplaceable action that I take that has totally brought me so much deliverance is I keep what I call a gratitude log. And every day I just write in it the date and the moments that mattered to me. And it's usually about people or purpose or plans. So I write the people. I write the moments. Because it's in the big moments, you get married, you have a baby, you get promoted. Those are great, but those are fleeting. The moments when I'm at Kiwanis and I'm trying to raise some money for a family who's been through a tragedy, and in 5 minutes I've got almost $600 because they are my community. And when I tell them about a tragedy that a family has gone through, and I tell them, whatever you put in, I'll match. And we walk away with almost $600. That moment mattered to me.
Mhm.
Being involved in a civic organization that focuses on the needs of children. Children matter to me. They are our future. And it doesn't matter where you find, but never join something to get, only join to give. our giving has got to be, and we recognize that all of our getting in life comes from our giving, but it can't be giving to get. It's got to be totally altruistic, giving because I want to make a difference. I want to help someone. When we get to give, we get. I had a young woman in my life who I adore. She's an honorary child. She went through a similar kind of ministry experience, and they didn't give her what she needed. And so she changed direction and she needed a place to stay. And I said, I've got a guest suite. And we got to be together for about 8 months. And now that girl is part of my family and she helps me feel safe because there's nothing she won't do to make sure that I'm okay. I wasn't looking to get anything from her. I just saw someone I could relate to who'd been through a similar experience, and I saw the quality in her life. And now she's a part of my life. I just am amazed at how God brings the people into our lives that we can make a difference for, and you never know when they're going to make a difference to us. So having community, finding your tribe, and you just never know where they're going to be. But I tell the young kids, I said, talk to strangers. I know when you're little, you got to be wise because you don't know everything yet, but we want to talk to strangers. I meet a stranger at Lowe's, and 2 months later, we're doing a dinner for fifth and sixth graders at her castle that she just bought. Hello, I'm just talking to the clerk at Lowe's.
Yeah, you'll never find things like that if you're afraid to talk to others or make new connections.
When you're on an airplane, talk to the people next to you, get to know each other. I can't tell you how many people became my clients because we sat next to each other on a plane. I wasn't trying to get new business. I was just making friends. We've been friends on Facebook. You're the only one I trust in this business. Would you help me? Sure, I'll help you.
And that goes back to what you said, giving because you want to. So you're not
Right,
sitting there saying, "Oh, there's a potential client right there."
right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
It's never about the getting.
No. No, and that's a wonderful,
So
beautiful way to live.
keeping a gratitude log helps you stay focused, and it's got to be a discipline. It's like exercise. If
Mhm.
you don't figure out how to make it part of your daily schedule, so it's like, I do my devotions and I write in my gratitude log, and I pray and I prepare and I write down everything I'm going to do. I've got it on my digital calendar, I've got it on my paper calendar, and then I've got a piece of paper that I take with me for the day to make sure I'm where I'm supposed to be when I'm supposed to be there. But having those triggers to remind you, because sometimes you forget about the moments. So I keep my gratitude log out where I can see it and I can write in it and I can keep on top of those moments that brought me joy. And then your heart is full, and you're not a whiny wuss. And who likes a whiny wuss? But if you don't do something to keep your heart full of joy, it's easy. The negatives can often overshadow the light. We want to overshadow the darkness with our light. And frankly, I had a client who died at home and was dead for 5 to 7 days before his body was discovered. And his sister lived in Hawaii, and his brother lived in Florida. And for 16 days, we took care of everything, including writing the obituary, doing the funeral, cleaning out his apartment, divesting every item he had, organizing all of his paperwork, seeing an attorney, seeing the financial people, getting everything taken care of. I didn't see that coming 15 some years ago when a mutual friend introduced us at the same restaurant that I met your sister at.
Wow. And what's even crazier is you're talking about Sydney, Ohio, which is very small, a very
Right?
small community. I was going to ask that earlier. How did you end up in Sydney, Ohio?
I would never have chosen it. Only God could have known. I'm from New York City. Ohio would never have been on my radar. I had this great lust for being a citizen of the universe. I infected my children with it. And I look at all of the journeys that my children have taken. And I think, yeah, I did that to them. But only God could have known that the heart of this community, the volunteer rate in Sydney, Ohio is 3 times the national average. The heart of this community, we have a homeless problem, we have a drug problem, but the heart of this community is loving service. It is mindfulness. It's where people pay attention to each other, where you can talk to strangers. You can make friends in the aisle at Aldi's. You can, it doesn't matter where you are. You can smile at someone. You can look at someone. During COVID, people stopped looking at each other and talking to each other. People were terrified. And I made up my mind, I'm going to smile with my eyes and I'm going to elevate the volume of my voice so they can hear me over the mask. And I am going to talk to people because we are becoming disconnected. And that is so critical, I think, to how we live life. Be engaging, keep your eyes open, look up, look out, notice. If somebody looks lovely, if their hair looks good, if you like their ear, whatever, speak to people and lift them up. Tell the clerk at Aldi's they're the best in the universe. I love Aldi's.
Little shameless plug.
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more. And if more of us did those little things, what a difference we would make in this world. So, listeners, you have a lot of homework today. You have to start a gratitude log, which I'm
There
going to
you
go
go.
do. Actually, one of my friends on Facebook, she and her now husband last year, the first of the year, and I mentioned this on a previous podcast, she talked about how they decided every Sunday they would write what they were thankful for the week. They would write that in a journal and at the end of the year go back and read it with each other. And I thought
Uh-huh.
that was so cool. So I started that, but it's not enough. I need to do it every single day
It's
because
really not enough
it's not
because you
every
don't,
day.
and then you realize once you start thinking about it and using my calendar to refresh my memory of, well,
Mhm.
actually, what did I do yesterday?
Right.
You know, it's like, oh, okay. I look at my, okay, that's what I did. Oh, that, and this happened, and then this happened, and
Yes.
then this happened. And then you start seeing God at work. And it gives you reason to be thankful to God for how he's at work in your life. And then your relationship with him gets closer and closer. And then you will never be alone
No,
when
never.
you are close to God.
Yeah, and
You will never be alone.
when you are thankful. I'm a realtor and I try to send out a weekly email. Again, got to remind yourself to do these things. But I send out a weekly email and yesterday the topic was thankful, grateful, blessed and I said, I know we say those things. It's kind of cliche. People say those three things together all the time or on Instagram hashtag thankful, grateful, blessed. What does it
Right.
really mean? I wasn't trying to be cliche, but it's so true. When you are thankful, when you are grateful, when you feel blessed, when you see the blessings, your life will never be the same. When you really
Amen.
start from a grateful heart, it makes a huge difference, and I try to remember that every day. So, I'm gonna start my gratitude log. So that's lesson number 1. Number 2, go out and compliment the woman at Aldi's that's doing a great job packaging up your groceries. And just remember all of these things. And I know I do feel like you and I could talk and talk and talk, but I do want to be respectful of time. And you've shared so many pieces, some nuggets, some things that we all can take with us. But I'll give you more opportunity if you have anything else you think our listeners should take from all that you've learned.
Well, I'm not making a shameless plug, but the title of my book is So When Does It Get Easier? How to Turn
Yes.
Tragedy to Triumph. That's on Amazon and there's also an audiobook. And I recorded the audio and Luke was my technical guy and he made it happen. We did it in one take. And my kids say, and my friends say, oh my God, when I read your book, I can hear your voice. But when I listen to the audiobook, I can really hear your voice.
Right. I'm doing that. I love audiobooks. So I'm doing that after this for sure. I already wrote that down and we are going to put that in the show notes so people will remember that title because I think we can all learn from you. My goodness, everything you said was an important nugget. I always say the word nugget because one of my previous guests said that she tries to do that everywhere she goes. Leave a little nugget. You left about 25. So
Well, and I will tell you, and I'm not being humble here. I really believe this. It's not about me. These are the things that God has shown me.
mhm.
This is what how God has taught me, has worked with me, has helped me to identify and see. And I am so thankful. When I met my biological mother for the first time, I asked her what her story was. And she said, well, I wanted to go into I can't remember if it was the Navy or the Air Force. So I gave you up. And I said, well, how did that work out for you? And she said, oh, I didn't like it. I got out after a year. And I realized, and many times as I was a young person, I would yearn to be in New York. If I could just be in New York with my mother, everything would be okay. And what I realized was, no, everything would not have been okay. And even though my upbringing had a lot of darkness in it, and it was traumatic, and I am still recovering from that, I will tell you, it is better than it would have been had I been with my biological mother. She was broken. She was not whole. Even though there was a lot of darkness, I got an amazing education. I learned how to run businesses. I learned how to talk on the phone. I learned how to do things that many young people never get the opportunity to learn. And when we recognize that there is always light in the darkness, that God is providing something that keeps us on track, God knew that this wasn't the best, but it had redeeming qualities. And I am thankful for that. And I learned a lot about kindness in the midst of darkness. I remember I took 4 years of Latin so I wouldn't have to take a language in college. And my Latin teacher said to me one day, she kind of whispered to me, she said, honey, it's not always going to be like this. It's going to get better. And I had no idea how she knew anything about my life. But I think everybody knew about my life except me. And God preserved me. God preserved me every step of the way. And when I look at the heart, I moved to New York City with $1,000, a 5-year-old boy and no job and no place to stay. And in 6 months in the 70s, I was making 150 grand a year from making 7,000 a year as an RN. And I did that because the books I read said that women who want to make serious money have to move to major metropolitan areas where the men who control the money will give it to them. This is in the 70s when women couldn't have a credit card, when women couldn't borrow money, when women couldn't have anything without a male signature, when women had not yet been emancipated. God knew what I would need to do, and I took a calculated risk, moved to New York City with a 5-year-old boy, no place to stay, and no job. And within 3 days, I had 6 job offers. And within 6 months, I was making 150 grand a year. And that was a lot of money then. Not so much today, but there was nothing I couldn't do. God provided. God knows what you need, and God has got a plan for you. You just want to listen in to what he says. So I thank you so much for letting me share God's heart, how he has shown himself in my life. And I love seeing how he has shown himself in your life.
Thank you. I just want to say before we end off that I'm so inspired. And I wrote down using your strengths because you said it at the beginning, God created us. And, when I was young, I'm sure a lot of people go through this where they, oh, I'm not good enough. Oh, I can't do this. I can't do that. I'm not pretty enough. I'm not popular enough. All of those lies that we tell ourselves. And I shouldn't even say when I was young because I still tell myself lies every once in a while. But when I start doing that, I've started correcting myself. Like, you can't put down what God created.
Amen.
And the fact that you are using your strengths and you've been using them, you haven't been afraid to use them your whole life. That is so inspiring. And I'm so honored that we were able to have you on here and we were able to hear all of your stories. The first page of my gratitude log, I'm going to talk about the moments that matter. And this is a moment that matters to me, having you on
Same
this
for me.
podcast.
Same for
so,
me, baby girl.
so thank you so much. And I want to keep in touch. So let's
Please
not
do.
let this be the last time we talk. And
Please do.
I have so many great things to share. I can't wait to listen to your book and to share it with all of our listeners. And I just appreciate you being here.
Thank you so much, sweetheart. God bless.
God bless you too. Thank you for joining me for the Show Me the Way podcast. I truly appreciate you tuning in to today's episode about overcoming adversity and finding your path. I hope it brought you new insights, empowered you with perspective, and inspired you to find joy in your journey. If this episode touched your heart, don't forget to leave a quick review as it will help us reach and motivate more people. Until next time, keep seeking the light and showing the way.